There you go. Okay, I got 602. Rachel, I'll let you go for it.
All right, guys, here we go. Off to the races. All right, so I am in between sports practices tonight. So we are going to keep this about, 30, 40 minutes on my side before Q&A. Topic for tonight. Topic for tonight is sharing your vision. And of course, in typical Rachel fashion, everything goes through the marketing filter. So I'm like, oh, all right, well, sharing your vision. Well, why don't we explore some effective strategies for implementing that across your marketing? Because everything in my world has to go through the marketing filter. So how do you share your vision across, your website, your social, email campaigns, and, all of that? To strengthen your brand identity, enhance customer engagement and loyalty, and how does then that really help with, brand recognition and customer retention, and ultimately impacting the bottom line of your business, right? So, all right. All of that is what we're going to cover tonight. And then I have to first by starting with a confession that I was watching this beautiful video this morning by Simon Sinek, where he was talking and telling a great story that I intended to share with you all like 10 minutes before this call to get you all hyped up. And then I can't find it. So I'm going to have homework where I'm going to find that video and send it to you. But in the interim, I'm going to tell you what he was talking about. He said that his whole life changed back before Simon Sinek was well known, when he was still up and coming in his career. He made this switch from asking people or even answering people about what he does to why he does it. And I know he has made a whole career out of why, but he gave this story about what he was like in an airplane, and he was sitting next to somebody and they were like, "Oh, what do you do?" And instead of answering, "Oh, what I do is this," he starts talking about why he does what he does. And he found that once he started talking that way, people were more likely to say, "Oh my God, I have somebody I just introduce you to. Oh, I know somebody who believes that too, or who shares your values or shares your vision." And so he said that that was a game changer, no longer asking people or answering that simple question that we all ask when we go to networking events, or we all, are sitting next to somebody on the plane or an event, like, "Oh, what do you do?" So he said, right then from the very beginning, change it from what you do to why you do it. And 9 times out of 10, it would lead to another introduction to somebody else. So that was a game changer for him. And I will find that video and I will send it after this call, put it on the back end of Yes. So, all right. Now, with that in mind, I want to kind of take us through this journey tonight. And here we go. So, so you're sharing your vision. All right. I have notes. Pardon me. Of course, I have notes. You guys, I'm saving you all for my PowerPoint presentation, but I'm going to bring you the highlights here. So, now all of you on this call, because you've been with us for some time, but there are probably people listening to this later that have not been with us. Your vision for your business and for your company and for your personal brand is originally represented by your values. I would imagine that everybody here has heard me talk about the values worksheet. Can I get a hand raise if you have gone through the values worksheet with me? Okay, 2, 3. Excellent. All right. That means there's some out there that haven't. So my first thing is, and I like to think about taking people through these steps when they're building their brands and their businesses. You really need to kind of figure out what you believe and what your values are before you can implement that into your vision. So you have to have a very clear and compelling understanding of yourself and of what you want to achieve and what you believe before you can communicate that to the outside world. So if you're interested in getting the vision worksheet, it's on the back end of Yes. If you're a new member or you're listening to this later, it's a worksheet that you can download, and I highly encourage everybody to do that. And then how do you take that and communicate it across your marketing efforts? So there's certain parts of a brand foundation that we do with all of our clients. after we do the values, we always do the vision. So that's something that your company or even your personal brand should have. We always do an about statement. We always do a voice. We always do a brand essence. And these are all parts of the brand like guidelines for every person and every business out there. So these are really important. And I was teaching a class last night on personal branding. And this actually is even covered in the book. I think it's on page 45 at the end of the personal branding chapter. And I led this group of 35 girls last night, women, ladies, through writing a personal brand statement exercise, because they were all struggling with talking about themselves, because people have a hard time being that self-reflective. So the exercise from the book that I led them through last night, what I'm going to lead you guys through right now, is how to do that and to save you reading the chapter. So and it's the end of the chapter. It's the chapter challenge. And so the exercise is to write down the names of 3 people that you look up to. By the way, there's 3 steps to this. So first is to write down 3 names. And these can be people that you know or people that you don't know. These can be fictitious characters from TV and movies that you look up to. It can be people that you admire. It can be a mentor. It can be your parents. It can be anybody, right? Any 3 names. All right. So from there, then you need to write down 3 adjectives or descriptive words about each person. So if you're, writing down the name of somebody that you look up to, like I'm going to give you the example that I used because it's easy for me to do it that way. Oh, I didn't write it down in here. All right, fine. Oh, yes, I did. No, I didn't. All right. Well, I know I put down Sheryl Sandberg because I look up to her. I know I put down Olivia Pope because I used to watch that show Scandal. And I know I put down Sarah Jessica Parker. So those were my 3. And then I had descriptive words for each one. Then the third step in the process is to take those descriptive words and form them into a sentence. So for me, it was like, by being courageously and strategically brave, I can achieve blah, 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 blah. So you can write a personal brand statement that way. You can also write a brand statement for your business. If you need to apply it to businesses, you could run through a similar exercise for your businesses. So I like that exercise a lot. And I know a lot of women have used that. And then men have used it too. A lot of people have used it. And a lot of the times I've seen people who put together like their annual vision boards, visually what they want, and then that brand statement will be at the top, or it'll be over the middle, or it'll make its way on there too. So it can be where you're at right now. It can also be aspirational of where you hope to be in the future, and that's okay too. So with that in mind, then you should be able to align your marketing efforts with your vision and where you're going, and with authenticity and purpose. Now, one of the things that I talk about with my clients is consistency. And I would imagine you all would probably like a little bit of conversation about, well, actually, you tell me, would you rather use an example of social media, or would you rather use an example of email campaign to bring this to life? Give me a vote, or put it in the chat so that I can see where you guys are at right now. Oh gosh, 1 for email, 2 for social. Oh, this election. Want to make sure the votes are authentic. No, just kidding. All right. Social wins. All right. Well, I'll try to do both if we have the time to do both. So that'll be just fine. So I am going to show you guys something. And I told you I was trying to avoid my sharing of PowerPoints, but I think it's really important to show you a couple examples. So I'm going to pull one up anyways. So bonus. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. I really like this slide, and I'm going to share it with you. I need sharing capabilities, please. Here we go. Got it. So you guys may or may not know, I actually consult for the small business in California every once in a while. They're small business digital marketing center. And I give this presentation sometimes on social media, and the visual here is important because consistency in your messaging, in communicating your vision, is what this is all about. So I want you to imagine that this is like the month and the year ahead. And up here in the key, let's say I'm working with a client and we've already done our work to decide that the most important buckets of communication are going to be holiday, a new campaign, an ebook, a webinar, a blog post, slide share something, product launch. All right. So we've got our buckets of content, and then we need to calendar it out for social media. When am I going to post on which days? And you should be thinking a month ahead on all of these things. So right now you should be building content for December. If you want to be working ahead, you should be building content for January. You should have a plan for all of this, of how far out you want to go. And then once you calendar it out, then you can schedule it out. And the reason that actually makes sense to talk about this alongside an email campaign is I advise all my clients to reuse their content across social media and across email. So let's say you've got an email that you're going to send out as a newsletter once a month to previous clients, current clients, future clients, anyone in that giant catch-all bucket. Every email should have at least 3 pieces of communication in it, and you can pull those directly from your social media. So you're not having to recreate the wheel. Maybe one is highlighting a product or service, one is highlighting something about thought leadership, and maybe one about culture, right? So you're adding some value, you're sharing some information about your services. That makes sense. The other thing that I want to talk to you guys about, and I don't need to share a screen for this, is that's an email newsletter. The other type of email that we all need to be doing for our businesses, especially if you have an e-commerce business, is automated email flows. And those are the email flows that you get from people when it's like you left something in your cart, like an abandoned cart flow, or you've just made a new purchase and it's like, welcome to the family. And, every 3 days for the first couple weeks, you get an email, right? Or thank you for your purchase. Here's a referral code for one of your colleagues or friends, right? So, and all of this is no accident. When you get these emails from a company, whether it's a newsletter or it's a flow, this is all hopefully it's strategically thought out and planned in advance, so it aligns with their values, it aligns with their vision, and it communicates who they are to you and is consistently building that relationship and engagement with you. Because, ultimately, I know I'm going to repeat this here and you guys know this, but I'm going to share my screen again because this is just fun. Now that I'm into slide sharing mode, it takes 2 brands to create a successful business, right? We all should remember this. And here is some visuals to support that. So you've got your business brand and your personal brand. You've got the logo for the business and the face for the company, right? This makes sense, especially when you start breaking it down. People like to follow people, not brands. So Sarah Blakey from Spanx has way more followers than the Spanx business, but it takes both of those brands in order for Spanx to be successful. The goal of the business brand is customer satisfaction. Like, did my service or did my product meet your needs? But the goal of the personal brand is that emotional connection. So sharing that vision, sharing those values that we've talked about in the beginning. This all builds and goes together. All right, now focus. All right, so let's look at Nespresso, right? Like, I think George Clooney is a great example here because you've got, like, he can go in that bucket and like be a part of the business brand for Nespresso as an ambassador, right? But then it still allows you to think, and oh, I'm gonna still be emotionally connecting with him, but now that's gonna like transfer over to Nespresso. So then they're capitalizing on that emotional connection, which is brilliant. The other interesting thing here that I wasn't thinking about this initially, but if you're a brand, you're limited to the category in which you're an expert. So most people don't know this, but some years ago, McDonald's tried to come out with a perfume. Totally a miss, right? Like, no one wants to buy a perfume from McDonald's. But when Beyonce decided to come out with a perfume, it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, she's an artist. Oh, she can make clothes. Oh, she can make jewelry. Oh, she can make makeup and perfume. Yeah, great. There's more freedom with a personal brand to experiment and try other expressions and create other brands. So ultimately, your vision, your values, all of these things come together and ladder up to what is ultimately your reputation. And your reputation is very, very important. You're expressing your reputation through social media, through your emails, through your website. And this is going to increase people's connection with you. It's going to grow your community, grow your followers, and ultimately grow your business, which is what we all aspire to continue to do. So people are on this wheel and they're going around and around, and it's not like everyone historically back in like the 90s, it was all about the purchase funnel and it was getting people through the funnel. Well, now people are on a wheel, and the goal is to keep people on the wheel. Right. We're feeding them content all the time. I was having a conversation with a client today who's an artist, and he hadn't been active on social media for a long time. And I was like, you have abandoned your relationship with your community of customers. They don't know if you're around anymore. So how can they buy from you if they're not hearing from you regularly? And unfortunately, this is a wheel that we're not getting off of anytime soon. You have to continue. It's like feeding a ogre or a beast that's never going to be fulfilled. We're on this hamster wheel, and we're going to have to keep feeding it, and there's like literally no turning back that I can see anytime soon. So I know that I went kind of down that rabbit hole, but I felt like our conversation was just sort of going there, and I felt you guys were good to go with me. All right, where did I leave off here on my notes? Let's see. Oh, storytelling. One of the most important things that you can do that's memorable, whether you're talking one-on-one with somebody, or you're giving a presentation, or you're speaking at an event, you have to have memorable stories that you tell about yourself repeatedly that represent the vision and the values that you want to communicate. Everybody should have in their back pocket like at least 2 or 3 lifestyle stories that represent your brand. So if you want to be known as hardworking, you should have a story that illustrates that. And it should be second nature to you when you tell it. And some people who are around you all the time, like your spouse or your best friend, they're probably like, oh my God, I've heard them tell that story so many times. We get it. But to somebody who hasn't heard it before, it's really important that you're consistent with telling that story. It should be the story that you tell when you're on a podcast, or when you're on a radio show, or when you're getting interviewed. Like, it should be your story about illustrating being a hardworking person, if that is indeed part of your brand. So think about, if you haven't already, what is your go-to stories, 2 or 3 of them that represent your vision for who you are and for your business. So I want to make sure I mention that. Let's see. Okay. That was my main points, but I feel like I've scratched the surface on a few things and you guys might want me to go deeper. So if you can tell me now, that would be great. Otherwise, I will just choose. Rod said something about creating a brand statement, focusing on social media versus emails. The brand statement, that should probably go on your website and it should be reflected across both your social media and your emails. But it's not going to be like just repeating the brand statement, but it should be reflective. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Is that brighter? A little bit better? There we go. Brightened my screen for you guys. I'm going to continue talking about benefits of having a strong vision. So if you don't mind indulging me here in this, I will give you 7 benefits of a strong vision. So when you have a strong vision, there are more opportunities. And let me tell you what that means. It means that you're going to be able to open more doors to new career opportunities, partnerships, collaborations. People are going to recognize your expertise, trust your reputation, and they're going to be more likely to seek your services or offer you professional opportunities. So number 1 was more opportunities. Okay. Number 2 is increasing trust. So when you have a powerful vision, you'll be known as sort of an authority in your field in that space. This will give you credibility and increase your trust and allow you to influence others' opinions and their decisions, and whether it's really within your industry, among your peers or social circles, or outside of that, like you will have strong trust, and that's important, as we all know. The third is image control. So when you have a strong vision, you'll be able to control how others perceive you. You can proactively manage your online presence, and showcase your strengths. And this control is going to help you mitigate potential damage to your reputation to ensure that your desired message is consistently communicated. So if anything ever did come out in the news about you or something that didn't align, you will, be able to combat that because you already have communicated your strong vision. All right. Number 4 is career advancements. So when you have a well-defined vision, it can set you apart in job interviews. It can, help showcase your skills, your achievements, your character, and it'll increase your chances of securing those like future career opportunities that you want. Number 5, when you have a strong vision, you're able to actually, and this is thinking a little bit outside yourself, but have more community impact. Community impact. So a well-crafted vision can inspire others and create positive change. People can, leverage you and your vision to, raise awareness about important issues or motivate people or contribute to the community. Number 6 is networking. When you have a strong vision, it can help attract mentors or supporters or like-minded peers who share your values and your aspirations. And, networking, of course, always helps you build meaningful relationships that can be invaluable, to creating the future that you want. So number 7 is life skills, kind of a broad one. But having a strong vision, this is kind of the life, it's like an advanced life skill that when you're able to effectively communicate who you are, what you believe, kind of shows that you're like that higher level thinker. And, it's just one of those like success metrics that you aspire to, that other people will look to and be like, oh, they really have it together. I want to have myself together too. So I think that's very important. Okay. So we talked about our brand statement. We talked about social media. We talked about emails. We talked about how it takes two brands to be successful. We talked about the 7 benefits to having, a strong vision. I think that we covered a lot. And I've been talking to you guys for a hot minute here. So let's see if I've missed anything in the questions. All right, best place to build a personal brand. You should be building your personal brand. Yes, on LinkedIn. Yes, on Instagram. Yes, on Facebook. If you're a TikTok person, do that. I'm also a big believer right now that now is the time that you should be doing video content, and not just any video content. I'm going to show you guys another thing because I love visuals. I'm getting ready to do a video shoot, and you guys are going to love this. Now, this video shoot is for a client, so please don't share it. We are going to be shooting for an 8-hour day. And this is a complete list of video topics. She works in the beauty industry. So these are our goal is to have 40 video topics that she's going to talk about. Okay. Obviously, we have a few more than that. We've got like 80 topics. But once we have the topics, then we're going to move over here to the next tab. Now we're going to have key talking points. We're going to have 3 talking points for every topic. So that way we're prepping for the video shoot. So we're going to have an 8-hour shoot. We want to do at least 40 1-minute videos. We're going to have at least 8 outfit changes, and we're going to have all the talking points pre-drafted in advance, so that those are prepared. Now, here's the catch, and here's like the bonus piece. Down here, these are lead-ins, and you probably are going to want to take a screen grab of these lead-ins. So if you'll notice right now with a lot of social media content, any of the 60-second reels, you've got 2 seconds to get people's attention before you lose them. So here's a bunch of lead-ins that are currently trending. Anything with the word you, if you start with the word you, that helps. Things like my friend said, or this one time, or are you looking for help with? Any of these generic lead-ins are going to help you set yourself up for an interesting 60-second talk. And then you can go into talking about whatever you're going to talk about. Overcoming a challenge as a business owner, how to stay ahead of the curve, marketing your brand, tapping into future potential, whatever is relevant to your brand. So, I know that was a really long-winded answer for how to build your personal brand, but you should be batching your social media content. So when we're recording those 40 videos for her, that's going to be about 6 months worth of content. So that way we can record her just twice a year. And then we take the rest of the time to edit and schedule and post and plan ahead, use that content calendar that I showed you guys. And if you're interested on which platforms to do scheduling, ask me that question too, so that you're not always posting live, but that you're using a scheduling tool. All right, Taylor, what's up? Go ahead and unmute.
Sorry, can you hear me? It always takes me a second.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. So thank you. I'm sorry I came in a little late to the conversation, so I missed the first part, but I really love the topic, Rachel. Thank you for diving into this stuff. It's already helped me tremendously, especially the info with the lead-ins and just reiterating that video is important right now. Okay, so what's really been on my heart, and I don't know fully how to ask the question, but I struggle not so much with marketing myself online, but in interpersonal communications. When somebody, like, even if it's just a friend, if they're like, so how's business? I have no idea what to say. I just freeze up, and I don't know if anybody, I have talked to a couple other people, maybe one that's usually in this group, who has experienced the same thing. So I know that I'm not the only person who feels uncomfortable talking just in like a passive way about my business. And I can't quite pinpoint why that is. Or so do you have tips on like, what do I focus on? How do I talk about my business just in personal life?
Question before I answer.
Yeah.
Do you struggle more to talk to people in your family and like like lifelong friendships about your business, or do you struggle more when you're like at a networking event?
No, not so much. So I've met a lot of new people recently, and they will ask me questions, and I guess it is more for longer. I guess if I were to really evaluate that, longer relationships, longer held relationships. So yeah,
Yeah.
friendships, people I'm closer to, and family. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And the reason I asked is because I've got two answers, one for each
Okay.
of those. So, and I'm gonna answer the friends and family one first. When I wrote my book, my dad read my book first person to read it. And he says to me, "Wow, I learned a lot about you." I said, "Really?"
Wow.
I mean, you know me like my whole life. I mean, I see you all the time. We're very close. Like, and he said, "Yeah, well, but you don't talk about work." And I
Yeah.
said, "Well, that's because nobody really understands what I do or cares. Like when I'm together with my family, I put my family hat on. And I don't know if that's the best thing, but that's what works for me. And that's what's worked, I think, for a lot of other business women that I know and men. It's like you go into the role of like with my sisters, we talk about kids and when, or we talk about like books that they're reading, lifestyle things. One's a teacher, one used to be a nurse, like nobody works in business. We have nothing in common when it comes to my business. So they don't even know what to ask me, let alone care about what my answer would be. So my advice to you is with those friends and family, put them in that category of friends and family and don't have the expectation that they're going to understand you or be interested in what you are doing, because even though what you're doing is amazing, and they should be more interested, they're just not. They might feel threatened. They might feel jealous. They might not know how to, connect with you in that level. So I've started to kind of like, what do you call compartmentalize different people in different spaces. Like my best friend I've had since we were 8 years old. And we played soccer together. We went to college together. We have all this shared history, but she's a stay-home mom. And like we never talk about business, and she loves me and I love her. But like, it is just, there's no reason for that. Like she's not going to get it. And I'm not going to explain it in a way that makes her feel good. So anyways, so there's that one. And then on the flip side, I would imagine like, that you don't have this problem, but other people might. And it's the imposter syndrome. If you find yourself in a networking or a business situation and you're like struggling over your words to talk about your business, it's because you might not feel confident enough. You might not have had enough reps, like of telling the story about, those stories about your vision or your values and who you are, and those like personable stories, or describing your business. Like those take a lot of reps. The first time I was in a business luncheon and I had to say that I was the owner of the company, I totally stumbled on my words. And, now, 10 years later, I have no problem with it. So just more reps on that one.
Okay.
And I think you should start trying to fill your circle with more business friends in addition to those lifelong friends and family members.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like, people like friends and family members are invested in my business to the point that it catches me off guard almost. So they are asking like, so how is business? They're genuinely interested, which I totally appreciate. But even like Jim has asked me how's business before, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know there's not necessarily a right answer. I'm just like, okay, how do I don't know. It's hard for me. I'm almost like I would rather talk about anything else in this situation, but I'm so passionate about it. So I don't know. I don't know.
I think you need more reps.
Okay. Awesome. No, that's great. That is super helpful.
More
I
reps.
need to hear it.
And I mean, by the way, when someone like in this group asks you, I mean, they genuinely want to know. They really want to know how you're
Totally.
doing. They want to know what you're
Yeah.
struggling with. They want to know how they can help. But
For
if
sure.
somebody out in the world asks you how your business is going, and let's just pretend that you've had a crap day and sales are down for the month and things are terrible, you never say that. You're always like, oh,
Yes.
business is great, amazing, because success breeds more success. So
Sure.
it's like you got to know if you're in that like safe inner circle space, which this group is. So
Totally. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that wisdom. And I love when Jim asks me how business is, by the way, FYI.
I love it when Jim asks me how business is too. So nice.
All right. I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, people, I know there's a request to get all those lead-ins on the back end of the platform. I will definitely add those in addition to the Simon Sinek video. Rod, Jim, you guys want to chime in? And
Yeah, Rod raised his hand first, so let Rod go. And then I'm going to ask everybody how their business is. Not really.
That's kind of funny. You know, I'll get Taylor off the hook for just a little bit. I think you come by some of that genetically, Taylor, because your mother, who's a very successful businesswoman, never, ever talks about herself. You know, I'm one of those that, you know, I like to share with the world what I'm doing. You know, I'm passionate and again, it's the reps. You know, I'm not afraid to tell people what I'm doing, where I'm at, and that sort of thing. My wife is the other story. People will ask, we'll go to business things and political events and everything else, and they'll ask my wife, well, what do you do? You know, that's the cynic question right there. Well, what do you do? And her response has always been, I work for myself. And you know what? Nobody ever does a follow-up. Nobody ever says, oh, well, what do you do? It's just that cursory, oh, well, what do you know, but she never is forthcoming with information. Part of it, she's in the healthcare thing and, you know, it's personal and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, sometimes it's hard to bridge that gap. And I think, Rachel, your advice to, you know, just get the reps in, get comfortable talking about what you're passionate about. And I'm going to go back to the very beginning when you started here. I put a little thing here with the switch to why. You know, starting with this whole topic with the Cynic story was, I think, pretty awesome, and it works here because what it gets us doing is telling our story. And if you can tie that into, you know, when someone asks how things are, start with the why, and then get back to go to your story. We all have to have a story to go to. And you mentioned, Rachel, several stories, you know, that illustrate our brand. But I think it's important, everyone, and I know what most of you do on, you know, your entrepreneurial activities and even your intrapreneurial activities, but all of those have a story behind them. They have your personal brand story behind them. And I didn't realize how important that personal brand part of it was really until you went through this whole thing, you know, seeing Steve Jobs and, you know, the faces of the brands. And I think we need to work on, everyone, this is one thing I think we all can work on, even for the week. What is your story? And I gave Taylor this advice because she's going to be doing a business presentation, her first real business presentation to a group of people in the next couple of weeks. I don't know exactly when it happens, but she's got a phenomenal story. And my encouragement to her was to have a 3-minute story, a 20-minute story, and a 50-minute story. And they're all the same story. They all start with the same important mission statement. You know, why do you do what you do? But then use those talking points to build on that based on the audience. And I think that's something we all can do because we all have our story. Every single person on here has a story, and they're phenomenal stories. And even if you're young, you already have stories. You have imprints, things that people have imprinted on you. And I had tons of stories before I even got out of high school. Some of them you might want to, maybe you don't want to hear them. I wasn't always a good boy when I was in high school, but I have some great stories because of it. So that's the first thing I want to say is that the story is so important. And Rachel, I appreciate you bringing that up because we all can work on writing down our story and tying that into our brand. How is that branded us? You know, the language brand is important. How has our story branded us? Because now we use those stories and our mission to brand our product or our services. So it's just, you talk about being on the wheel, this is all tied together. And I just love it when you throw all this stuff together and then you systematically break it down and say, this is what you've got to do next. So that's that. And then I'm gonna kind of ask you a question and then I'll turn it over to Jim. I have, when I first got onto social media, which has only been 2 years, right? I'm a neophyte at this, just a little over 2 years. And I vowed when I got on, I was never going to get into the political thing. I was never going to be negative on social media. Everything was going to be positive. And since I've gone through this little lifestyle thing, and I realized that there's a shortened lifespan, you know, I always thought I was going to live forever. And now that I'm looking at, you know, if I'm shortening things up, I'm ready to take the gloves off a little bit. And you've probably noticed even in those of you who follow my morning posts, it's gone from 5 o'clock somewhere where it's just positive stuff to, you know, I'm getting a little bit edgier. And I think it's still part of my brand because it's true to my core values, but my messaging is changing a little bit. And I didn't do that necessarily on purpose, but I've noticed it happening in the last, well, even in the last month. So if you see me getting out of line a little bit too far, any of you, I want you to call me on it and say, hey, tone it down a little bit. You know? So again, I'm not without my opinion, but I'm going through a transition right now. And I don't know where it's going to lead, but it's going to be good. So that's enough of that. Jim?
Thanks, Rod. Always honest statement from Rod. Hey, so I've talked to before about, you know, reading a book or watching a show or listening to a podcast. If you can get one thing out of that, it's worth the entirety of the program or the book. Tonight, I got 3 things out of it for me personally. And hopefully you got the same, but I like to narrow it all down to what my real takeaways are. And Rachel, thanks for doing a great job. I took a bunch of notes. I know you're going to put stuff on the back end for these guys. I love that you always bring something, a tool for people to use in their business. And you guys are crazy if you don't use it. By the way, that Excel spreadsheet that Rachel popped up of the photo shoot that they're doing, that's how it's done. And that's how it's done right. You want to be in the business of marketing or build your brand, do it right. Use that as your example. Use that as the top of the bar, because Rachel's been doing that for years. And that's why I always used to hire her for everything I had. And she continues to set that bar. So that's the example. If you don't know what it is, you saw it tonight. So here's the 3 things that I'm going to take away. I'm going to save the best for last, right? I like 2 brands to create a successful business. Most of us forget how important that is right now because, well, hell, Samantha and I lived it when she was working for Flag Nor Fail. Dana Bailey was one of the owners. She had 2 million followers. You know, the brand itself had like 300,000 or 400,000 followers. All Dana had to do is flip a switch and business would go through the roof because she had built a business. And she had more followers than the business and her husband, who's an influencer, right? So it just goes to prove that a business does have 2 personalities, more so now than ever. And if you don't think that it doesn't, look around, dig into it, because I would venture to say almost every business has that personality that you stick to. The second thing that I really liked was that reminder about when you send out a newsletter is having 3 pieces of communication within that newsletter. I noticed that you always do that on yours, Rachel. I look at a lot of clients' newsletters and it's like 1 bullet point. And if you're wanting more, it's just not there. So take the time to put more in there. And I like the ability as a platform or as a template to have 3 pieces of communication because you can really mix it up. And one of those things is bound to catch the attention of somebody. I think that also would play true to social media programming or podcast programming or LinkedIn programming, not just newsletters. So think about extending your bullet points past the 1. So I really like that. But here's the big takeaway for me tonight. And this is gold. This is worth the last 6 months of doing this show, doing this community is what you do versus your why. Responding to somebody with what you do versus your why. I think Simon Sinek nailed that. And thank you for bringing that out tonight, because if we can be better communicators, if we can bring the heart into the conversation, we're bound to not only resonate more with those people listening that are willing to ask us that question, but as Rachel suggested, you might even pick up more business, more referrals, more opportunity, or you just might be a little bit more authentic talking about what you do as opposed to, what your why is. That was the point. What's your why? So anyways, I love that point. That's my takeaway of all things that you talked about tonight, Rachel. So thank you for that. I'll give it back to you.
Good. Thank you. I liked that too. I feel like I get asked that a lot, like, oh, those introductory conversations. Oh, what do you do? I'm never going to answer that the same way ever again. So I liked that. That was an aha for me as I was putting this together. The last thing I wanted to tell you guys, and I feel like it just wouldn't be complete if I didn't share this with you. But I'm messing up my, hang on. All right. I'm just going to share it like this. When we were talking about social media scheduling and when we were talking about emails, I didn't talk to you about the platforms. So for social media, if these are the platforms that you're looking at posting on, these are different providers that you can use for scheduling. Now, there are others, like Sked is not on here, and you guys know I'm a fan of Sked. But these are, and then not all the platforms offer all of the different channels. So think about that. And then, similarly for emails, there's Constant Contact, there's MailChimp, there's Klaviyo, there's, all these different email providers out there. And you might be saying, oh, well, I use Squarespace website and they have an email sending program. Should I use that one? Or should I use a different one? Because they're all advertising. Well, use ours, you're going to sell more, or people are going to open it more. For the emails, the number one thing is you have to work in an email platform that you're comfortable with. So if you're going to, whatever platform you're comfortable with, and if you are a novice, then you should probably be in a platform that's spoon feeding you, like MailChimp or Squarespace, keeping it really simple. If you're more comfortable with coding and customization and more complex, then Klaviyo or Constant Contact is going to be great for you. But you have to be comfortable. And regardless of which platform, you need to have your domain verified. So that's your website domain needs to be verified through your email provider. Otherwise, you're going to be automatically going into a lot of people's spam. And that's something that they don't teach you or tell you in advance. So get your email domain verified. Here's the other kicker that they don't tell you. Let's say you send out 100 emails, right? And let's say 20% of them bounce, 20% of them are marked as spam, 20% of them, are not opened. At your search engine optimization, your website SEO is going to go down. Your Google ranking is going to go down. You're going to be penalized because right now, what's happened is your credibility as a website is directly impacted by the engagement of the audience that you're sending emails to. The back ends are all connected. So if you're sending out emails that have crap content that are not getting opened or marked as spam, or you don't have an engaged community, then your website is going to have a low authority score. It's going to have, other issues or problems. If you're sending, let's say you're sending like those one email a month that I talked to, that I mentioned earlier, you could probably segment your audience and be like, oh, if someone opened my email in the last 30 days, they're an engaged audience member. I'm going to send it to them again. If they haven't opened one in 60 days or 90 days, I'm going to hold off. And I'm not going to communicate via email with those people again unless it's really important. I'm going to really wait. So you have to start being really strategic about how and when you email people. The rules are, the Big Brother rules are there, and they're going to be impacting you and your business and your website. So we could do a whole other presentation just on like a deep dive into emails if you want, but I think that's enough to scratch the surface to get you guys going. So if you have follow-up questions, let me know on the back end of Yes, and I'll happily answer those. So sorry, I had a little extra teachable moment there, but I know we need to wrap up, and I've got to go drive over to volleyball practice. So,
Good
so
job,
I'm
Rachel.
gonna call tonight.
Good job. Thanks for the lesson tonight. Thank you everybody for tuning in. You can catch this recording when Rachel posts it up. And Rachel, I know you post stuff on the back end. So thank you, everybody. Reach out to us if you need us.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Good night, everyone.